It is a curious truth, isn't it? The more you offer yourself without reservation, the less your true essence is perceived. Imagine the sun shining perpetually, never dipping below the horizon. Its brilliant light, once a marvel, would eventually blend into an unnoticed constancy. Or consider a bird's ceaseless song. If it sang without a moment's pause, its melody would soon lose its distinctiveness, dissolving into mere background noise. Yet, the instant you choose to step back, to withdraw into a deliberate quietness, your very presence begins to acquire weight. People start to discern the distinct outline of your absence. In that very emptiness, a re-evaluation of your worth often occurs. This phenomenon is one of life's most profound and delicious paradoxes. What is consistently present tends to become invisible, while what becomes scarce suddenly becomes precious. This isn't about engaging in manipulative tactics or the frivolous game of playing hard to get, which is nothing more than another form of pretense. Instead, it speaks to a deeper wisdom, the profound art of honoring your own presence, moving through life with the same natural rhythm observed in the ocean's tides or the moon's ancient cycle of waxing and waning. Even the grand canvas of nature does not reveal all of itself at once, nor does it operate without pause. Anything that is constant and seemingly limitless eventually loses its special quality, becoming ordinary. Its true value isn't in an unending display, but in the inherent rhythm of its emergence and retreat, its appearance and disappearance. If the sun were to shine without end, we would undoubtedly grow weary of its perpetual light, eventually yearning for the cool relief of shadow. So too it is with you. Your presence inherently possesses power because it, much like the tides, comes and goes. It mirrors the ebb and flow of love, which thrives in both closeness and necessary distance. True respect is not cultivated through endless exposure, but rather through the sacred spaces in between, the moments of reflection and longing. Have you ever observed how quickly genuine generosity can morph into an expectation? The individual who consistently agrees, who always says yes, is invariably taken for granted. In contrast, the one who occasionally holds back, who thoughtfully chooses when and where to invest their time and energy, is often cherished more deeply when they do appear. This principle isn't about moral virtue, but about achieving a delicate and crucial balance. Stepping back is a fundamental act of remembering your own humanity. You are not an endless resource, a mere machine. You are a being of rhythm, like the rhythmic pulse of the sea, the moon's predictable phases. Life itself is not a monotonic straight line, but an intricate dance of presence and absence. Isn't it truly remarkable how the moment you cease to be perpetually available, relationships around you seem to acquire a renewed vitality? When you are not constantly at someone's beck and call, people shift their perception. You are no longer treated as an inert piece of furniture in a room, but as a distinct presence to be actively engaged with. They lean in closer, they listen more intently, and they treasure the fleeting moments you share. Even your silence, your very absence, begins to communicate profound messages. We tend to appreciate the refreshing sweetness of water only when it becomes scarce. When it flows in abundance, gushing everywhere, it is often taken for granted, sometimes even wasted. But when it is carefully drawn from a deep, hidden well, each precious sip is savored. So it is with your own presence. If you inundate the world with your constant availability, you risk diluting your intrinsic value. However, when you appear and recede like the ocean's tide, your presence offers refreshment, much like cool water in a parched desert. From our earliest childhood, many of us are subtly or even overtly taught to smile, to nod, to agree, to readily say yes. We often mistakenly equate obedience with affection and endless availability with genuine love. Yet love, much like a carefully tended garden, desperately requires space to breathe and flourish. Excessive rain can drown it, and relentless sun can cause it to wither. Love thrives in a natural rhythm, not in overwhelming excess. Absence in this context is not a void, it is the essential interval that provides shape and definition. Just as music is composed not only of individual notes but also of the powerful silences strategically placed between them, so too does love ripen and deepen within the intricate dance of closeness and distance. Without these vital pauses, all can dissolve into an undifferentiated noise. Life is, in its essence, a melody. Therefore, if you never step back, never learn to articulate a firm no, you risk becoming that very noise, seen but not truly noticed, heard but not truly listened to. True value, profound meaning often resides in these deliberate intervals, in the well-placed, thoughtful absence. This isn't an act of neglect, it is a profound adherence to rhythm. A tree does not bear fruit in every season, it rests, it renews. Fire does not burn eternally, it must die down, conserve its energy, before it can be kindled and burn brightly once more. Even the most fundamental act of life, breathing, depends equally on exhaling as it does on inhaling. Why then do we mistakenly believe we must give ourselves without any reprieve? When you withdraw and subsequently return, your presence naturally gathers a profound weight, much like the hush that precedes a bell's resonant strike, making its sound reverberate with greater impact. Here lies the core paradox. By consciously making yourself less constantly available, you paradoxically become more real, more substantial. People then encounter your whole self, not merely the scattered, exhausted fragments you might otherwise distribute. Consider the person who speaks sparingly. It isn't necessarily that their words are inherently louder, but rather that their judicious silence imbues those words with extraordinary preciousness and significance. So it is with your presence. When given without pause, it becomes diluted, its impact lessened. But when held with thoughtful rhythm, it gathers immense intensity and power. This profound understanding explains why stepping back, at times, can be the most loving act of all. Observe love itself. Lovers who cling too tightly, who demand constant togetherness, often inadvertently smother the very flame they seek to preserve. Conversely, those who completely vanish without communication risk allowing the fire to die out entirely. The true art lies in finding this delicate rhythm, the balance between closeness and necessary distance, the interplay of voice and silence, the gentle dance of embrace and release. Notice how the individual who is seldom available often receives the most careful attention. This is not because their busyness is an inherent virtue, but because their time, when offered, carries significant weight. If such a person grants you a moment, it is genuinely perceived as a gift, valued and appreciated, precisely because it has not been carelessly scattered like seeds upon barren ground. Contrast this with the person who is perpetually waiting, endlessly bending to others' wills, whose presence is taken for granted simply because it is always effortlessly at hand. This distinction is not about establishing superiority, it is about profound recognition. When you learn to honor the inherent worth of your own hours, your own energy, others are instinctively compelled to honor them too. However, if you squander your time and energy carelessly, the world will inevitably treat them as trifles, insignificant and disposable. Thus, the act of no longer being perpetually available is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of profound clarity. It represents the quiet, resolute refusal to impulsively leap at every summons, to meticulously patch every quarrel that isn't truly yours to mend, or to serve as the unending remedy for other people's internal restlessness. It is the courageous act of standing firmly rooted within yourself, And from that deep wellspring of stillness, to choose to act only when the moment is truly right, when it aligns with your genuine capacity and desire. Your life is not intended to be an endless consumption machine, but rather an experience to be lived richly, deeply, and with profound sincerity. Only from such a place of personal fullness can you genuinely give in a way that truly nourishes both yourself and others, rather than leaving you utterly exhausted and depleted. When you consciously choose to cease being endlessly available, something quite remarkable begins to happen. You start to hear the subtle, quiet music of your own life again. For in the relentless act of perpetually tending to the needs and demands of others, you inadvertently drown out the small, secret melodies that reside deep within your own being. Your days might be filled with a cacophony of external clamor, yet your soul often remains unheard, its whispers silenced by the din. Step back, and suddenly you catch those elusive whispers, the quiet callings of your spirit, the subtle joys that have been overshadowed, and the long-buried desires that begin to rise to the surface like forgotten seeds finally breaking through the soil after a dormant winter. To cultivate availability towards yourself is the essential genesis of authenticity. Without this foundational authenticity, even love itself can become a counterfeit, a shallow imitation of its true form. Every yes that you utter, which in truth betrays your own authentic being, is in its deepest sense a silent no to yourself. And from such acts of self-denial, only bitterness and resentment can truly grow. Consider the poignant story of a man who tirelessly spent himself in the service of others, giving relentlessly until he was completely emptied, utterly depleted. Yet despite all his profound sacrifice, he remained largely unseen, his efforts taken for granted. At last, utterly exhausted, he wisely chose to step back. It was only then that the world around him, accustomed to his ceaseless giving, began to protest. They labeled him selfish, accused him of being cold, neglectful. But slowly, something truly curious began to unfold. In his absence, they started to truly feel the immense weight he had carried for so long. For the very first time, his presence was no longer assumed, but genuinely respected and deeply missed. In the act of stepping back, he had not, in fact, lost love at all. Instead, he had opened a vital door for authentic love to finally appear in a space where previously there had been only convenience and unacknowledged effort. So you see, to become less constantly available is not an act of rejection. It is fundamentally an act of profound invitation. It is an invitation for others to truly wake up to the genuine value and depth of your presence, and equally, an invitation for you to wake up to your own self, to your own needs and desires. For it is only within the open, spacious interval between two distinct beings that true respect can take firm root and authentic love can truly draw breath and thrive. When you are perpetually at hand, always accessible, no one feels the need to pause and wonder who you truly are or to fully appreciate what you genuinely contribute. But when you consciously withdraw, when you refuse to endlessly play a predetermined, accommodating role, they are suddenly compelled to pause. They must truly look. And in that crucial moment of seeing, the entire dynamic of the relationship begins to fundamentally shift. Why then is this simple truth so incredibly difficult for us to embrace? Primarily, it is because we are deeply frightened. We harbor the illusion that a single no might irrevocably banish love from our lives. We fear that if we step aside even for a moment, we will be swiftly forgotten, deemed dispensable. We tremble at the prospect that if we dare to honor our own inherent worth, others will simply refuse to do the same. But here is a critical question to ask yourself. If someone values you only for as long as you are endlessly at their disposal, Is what you are experiencing truly love? Or is it merely convenience, a transactional arrangement? Much of our suffering, you see, is not a direct consequence of what others inflict upon us, but rather what we passively permit, what we allow to happen. Out of an often deep-seated fear of displeasing others, we stretch ourselves thin to the very brink of breaking. We give far beyond our genuine means, depleting our resources. We utter yes when, deep in our hearts, our inner being cries out no. And then to compound this self-betrayal, we often cloak it under the seemingly noble guise of kindness. But it is no true kindness to betray your own authentic self. To offer what you genuinely do not possess is akin to extending an empty bowl. There is nothing substantial within it to nourish anyone. True kindness, genuine generosity, can only flow from a place of deep personal fullness. And such fullness, by its very nature, demands form, demands boundaries. To cease being endlessly available is to respectfully honor that fundamental form. It is to declare with quiet conviction, I am human, I possess a natural rhythm, I have inherent worth. And yes, it is an undeniable truth that some individuals may indeed drift away when you begin to step back, when you establish these new boundaries, but in that very experience you will uncover a far deeper, more profound truth. Those individuals were never truly with you at all, but rather with the unending fountain they mistakenly believed you to be. It is infinitely better to be deeply cherished for your authentic reality with all your human limitations and rhythms than to be merely tolerated for your utter exhaustion. It is far better to courageously lose those who consistently drained your life force than to completely lose yourself in the process of trying to appease them. And here, once again, the paradox reveals its profound face. Those who genuinely matter, those who truly love you, will not vanish when you step back and reclaim your space. They will instead bend with you, much like resilient trees bend gracefully with the wind, adapting to its currents. They will grow into the new open space you create, finding strength and deeper connection within it. And in that very movement of adaptation and mutual respect, the bond between you will not weaken, but deepen exponentially. Therefore, when you cease to be perpetually at hand, you do not, in fact, become less. You become profoundly more visible, more authentic, more real, more whole. You consciously gather together the scattered fragments of yourself, which may have been strewn by endless giving, and you return as a complete, integrated being. And life, in its infinite wisdom, always bows to wholeness. For wholeness possesses its own inherent gravity. It draws others in, it attracts genuine connection, and it commands respect without ever having to demand it. The fragmented self often clamors desperately to be noticed, while the whole, integrated self is simply noticed without any conscious effort. You cease to be mere background noise in the lives of others, and instead become the very music to which they intently listen. Picture yourself as a well, a source of vital sustenance. If everyone is permitted to draw from it without end, without allowing time for replenishment, the waters will inevitably vanish one day, leaving both you and those who depend on you thirsty and depleted. But when the well is thoughtfully guarded, when it is given sufficient time to naturally fill itself again from its hidden subterranean springs, then those who come to drink will find genuine refreshment and revitalization. To withdraw at times, to consciously cease being endlessly available, is simply to ensure that the waters of your own life remain pure, clear, and continuously flowing. This is not an act of selfishness. It is, in fact, the essential condition that makes genuine, sustainable giving truly possible. From a full, well-tended well, the water is sweet and abundant. From a dry one, absolutely nothing can be drawn. Yet it is important to acknowledge that the world initially may not thank you for this newfound boundary. Those who have grown accustomed to your endless flow, your constant availability, may indeed call you selfish, accuse you of having changed. And, truthfully, you have changed. You are no longer merely a tool to be used, an endless resource to be exploited, but a self-aware being who chooses to give from a place of freedom and conscious choice. This shift will inevitably unsettle those who thrived upon your perceived weakness or unlimited availability, but it will simultaneously strengthen those who genuinely honor your inherent strength and autonomy. In time, the numbers of people in your immediate circle may indeed grow fewer, but the depth and quality of your bonds will grow immeasurably deeper. For love that is truly real, genuinely authentic, does not fear your established boundaries. It respectfully bows to them, understanding their necessity. So then, we arrive at this profound and curious question. Who are you truly when you are not forever on call? Who are you when you are not constantly answering the insistent ring of the world's demands? Who are you when you simply sit still, when you cease the relentless chase, when you finally take the time to listen to the subtle hum inside your own skull? Most of us, you see, forget the answer to this question because we are so perpetually busy being useful to others that we have, somewhere along the way, misplaced our very selves. But in the profound silence, in that delicious, unburdened nothingness, you suddenly stumble upon yourself again, rediscovering the person you truly are beneath the layers of expectation. And far from being empty, that inner space is wonderfully, richly full. To withdraw is not to desert life, it is rather to return to its essential rhythms and truths. For in the act of stepping back, you discover that life, in its most fundamental sense, is like breathing in and out. If you only ever breathe out, you will inevitably collapse. If you only ever give, you will eventually dry up, depleted. The rhythm of the tide, the ebb and flow, is the very rhythm of authentic being. You see, it is the ancient paradox. In not desperately seeking things, they often come naturally to you. In not clinging tightly to things, they paradoxically remain. And so curiously, when you stop demanding respect, people often begin to respect you intrinsically. When you cease to be perpetually available, you become truly, authentically present. You don't have to insist on your worth, you are it. Therefore, the profound game of life is not about being endlessly busy, endlessly agreeable, or endlessly accommodating. It is about embracing rhythm, cultivating sincerity, and embodying wholeness. Say yes when it is a genuine, heartfelt yes. Say no when it is an authentic, necessary no. Step forward when you are truly full and capable. Step back when it is time to replenish your inner well. That isn't selfishness, that is simply the profound wisdom of the dance of life itself. And then, as if by pure magic, life itself begins to harmoniously keep the beat with you.